Before you all decide that you need another drink because it's education, it's a bit boring, and we've all kind of done that. Let me set some ground rules for myself probably, and say that Justine Greening has just had her one and only mention in this talk. At no point will I use the phrase education, other than to say that I won't use it. And I'm going to use the word funding just to say that I'm not going to use the word funding. So, I have never, probably will never, work in the field of education. I have no knowledge, I have no facts, I have no skills in that regard. What I do have is a passion for education, and what happens to young people, what happens to all of us, and maybe what continues to happen to all of us. So, for the future, I don't think we've got anyone under the age of 18 in this room, have we? Probably haven't got. Oh, Hannah, yes, we have one. But to all of you, and not only Hannah, if I could offer a single piece of advice for your future, it would be education. The benefits of a good education, I believe, are proven, and plagiarism seems to be a theme of the evening, so I'm going to do it as well, and I'm going to say the rest of what I'm about to say has no basis firmer than my own meandering experience. So apologies to Mr. Baz Luhrmann and the song Sunscreen, if anyone can remember such a thing. My story starts in the probably early to mid 1970s. I have a brother who is 2 years older than me. That only has relevance when you know how old I am. So I was born in 1970, my brother was born in 1968. We went to school in a town called Helsham, and we lived absolutely across the road from the school that we lived. It was roughly a 15-second walk to school in the mornings. When we first went to school, we were introduced to education, and we were introduced to something called the alphabet. We were introduced to a version of the alphabet. There was a teaching method at the time called ITA, and it had curly curs and kicking curs and letters that looked like I've subsequently discovered, looked like they belong in the Greek alphabet. But that was our introduction to the alphabet and the English language and stuff. So we did that for a couple of years, and then after a couple of years you moved up to the junior school, and they actually told you that ITA stuff, oh, made that noise again, was rubbish, and that actually wasn't the alphabet, and it wasn't real, and you needed to forget about that stuff, and this was the real alphabet. My brother never really liked school, according to my parents, and this is my own meandering experience. The fact that he'd been taught something for 2 years and then was told that it wasn't real, wasn't true, I think scrambled his brain a bit, and he went through the rest of his junior school education, doing the best he could, but probably falling ever further behind in the world of academia. So when it came to going to secondary school, he was, and my parents were advised that he shouldn't go to a mainstream secondary school, but he should go to a school that were people that were behind in their education, and that could best cater for his needs. So they duly did this. They duly accepted the recommendation and sent him off to this school. he did really well at that school, and progressed quite well, progressed really well, to the point where probably after a couple of years he was, my parents were approached, and they suggested that he might go back into mainstream education. In a moment of clarity that I almost wouldn't associate, it sounds terrible, doesn't it? It sounds really nasty, with my parents, but they actually decided not to do that. They decided that they'd leave my brother in this school because he was doing well and he was progressing, and his development was the most important thing. I think the late 70s, early 80s were arguably not the most enlightened period in our lifetime, and they were worried that if it put him back into a mainstream education and someone that had been in a special school, he might have been subject to some bullying. The pressure of catching up might have been too much with him, for him rather. And they decided that he was doing well, he was happy to go to school, he was developing, and he was being educated. I think that it's probably the wisest decision anyone has ever made, in my own opinion. Now, the upshot of this, so he went through his education, left school at 16, has no qualifications, none at all. To the point where he doesn't have any qualifications because he didn't sit any exams. That was his education. But, and I am enormously proud of my brother, enormously. He's never not worked a day in his life. He left school, he went into, got a job in a local factory, in a local engineering factory, worked there for a couple of years. He then got a job for the local electricity supply company as a labourer, digging holes in the ground and for people to come along and lay cables in and things like that. He has progressed through that. He's taken various qualifications. He's passed various exams. He now does the very responsible job of joining together mains electricity cables for a living. A job for which I'm fairly sure we're all fairly grateful that people do. A job that frankly scares the living shit out of me. If I were to do it, it would scare the living what's-its out of me, and some of the stories he's told me give rise to my nervousness. Basically, he's done really well for himself since that, and probably since my parents' decisions as well. So, when Tim approached me about doing another talk after my previous one, I thought, well, yeah, what should I do it on? And that's a subject close to my heart. My experience of education is I did somewhat better. I learned ITA and I learned the alphabet, and I did all right out of the world of academia, but it caused troubles to my brother. So it's the society thing. This is, I think, moving on to the crux of my point. How does society view the lack of education? How do we all view education? What is education? Is it passing a test on a given day? Or is it aptitude to learn skills? Is it being able to solve algebra equations? Or is it being able to problem solve in the real world? I'm quite passionate about this. As I said at the start, I have no foundation of knowledge or anything like this, but I am quite passionate about it. I personally feel that there are many areas and aspects of society that that give rise to our young people, and not only to our young people, to actually stop learning. That if you can't pass the test at 16 or 18 or 23 or 25 or whatever time, once you've gone past that, once you've sat your A levels, GCSEs, sitting guilds, university degrees or whatever, that actually it's somehow okay to stop learning and stop developing. There are so many skills that people have got, and there are so many ways to learn. I try in my own experiences to learn a bit every day, and it might be learning a bit of academia. My favourite TV programme of the week is University Challenge. I watch it every Monday. I score myself. If I get between, every question counts as one in my world when I watch it, because I don't do that 10 and 5 and all the rest of it, malarkey. But if 1 to 5 is below average, 5 to 10 is average, anything above 10, if I get 10 or more questions right a week, good week. But it's also so, education actually, and our development is actually so much more than that. It could be learning to care a little bit more, learning to understand someone's feelings a little bit more, each week, each month, each year. Showing someone how to put up a tent, you know, because you've got that skill. Showing someone how to wire a plug, because you've got that skill and they haven't. It's not just that I've got maths GCSE at A star or whatever. The purpose of my talk is not to say I've got the answers to the questions. I don't. I suspect that none of us do. When Tim asked me to speak, the purpose of my talk is to get maybe some people, one person, anybody, to start asking questions about how we view it. If we are an employer and someone comes to us without any qualifications at all, how do we view that person? How do we look at that person? That person might be my brother. He's pretty skilled, he's pretty important to everyone. We all quite like electricity, don't we? You know, I love seeing academic achievement, but I do think it's not everything, and that people have got so many other skills, and that it means an awful lot more. I don't know what anyone's going to take away from this. I don't know, what it is. I just wanted to share my passion for education and for being a little bit better tomorrow than we were yesterday and we are today. That's my second passion. That's the education piece. Don't judge anyone. You don't know what they've been through to get to where they are. Thank you very much for listening.
Brilliant, thank you ever so much. A fantastic talk, a trip down education's memory lane, which I know that all of us have experienced in our own wonderful ways. Any questions for Ruff? So anything about education he wants to? Yes, Pat.
One of the questions that when I was leaving school, one of the questions that they said to me was, apart from qualifications, what has your school given to you? I'm going to say that's the question to you. Apart from forget the qualifications, what did the school give to you?
What have the Romans ever done for us?
What did my school give to me? It's a really great question. I think I came out of school fairly rounded. The school I went to Battle Road School, as it was called now. It is rather grandly now called Helsham Community College, I believe. Certainly when I arrived at that school in 1982, I think it was the first time I walked through the gates there, it didn't have a great reputation. It was a little bit the school of hard knocks. Yeah, I got into a fight. One question, he's on done it. I got into a fight with a guy who I walked into my school class, and I took an instant dislike to one kiddie, and he took an instant dislike to me, and he had a big brother. And actually they both became boxers, and actually in the end, by the time I'd left for school, I got on really well with both of them. But on the second day, probably a slight exaggeration, let's call it the second week and be a bit more real. Sorry about that. I got into a fight and I got my arse kicked. I split lip, sent home, blood down my shirt, mum going, what's going on? But it did teach me a life lesson. Yeah. But those people are there, and you know, sometimes you need to develop those relationships. So what did it teach me? But yeah, academia and qualifications are good, but there are life lessons in school as well. And I think I'd say that my school taught me some life lessons.
Any other questions? I gave a talk recently at a careers sort of event in Hastings Old Town, and one of the things that I flagged there at this talk was that we standardised testing, which is the sort of GCSE and A levels and that sort of stuff, is possibly a bit outmoded, and given that we can train pretty much all of us to do all the jobs that we do, that we perhaps have to rethink from the very basic level our way of educating kids. Well, is it right to have kids in classrooms and that kind of stuff?
Sorry, Tim. One thing I had meant to say and I thought earlier and I left out, and it's something we've spoken about previously as well. We test our kids often on one day, don't we? And we say, how much do you know about chemistry? On the 15th of May 2017, hot time of the year, they're 16 years old, hormones are probably pinging off all over the place, and actually what they know about chemistry on the 16th of May 2017 will stay with them for the rest of their life. Doesn't actually mean what they know about chemistry, it meant what they knew about chemistry on that day, on that one day. Doesn't make much sense, does it? But that's the system we have.
Do you not think that the system is changing though? There are people that are very educated that understand that there are others that actually sitting exams is not necessary and they need to have a career-based environment.
Absolutely, I do. I think it's probably better than it was. I think society is probably a little bit more enlightened and a bit more understanding. There were people out there back in the day that did help my brother and did take him on and did give him a chance. I don't know what challenges they overcame to give him that job and to give him that chance, but
I guess I think because things are so much more out there these days, different people learn in different ways, different people have different difficulties with different things. It's more prevalent in the work environment now with people who have positions where they say, well, actually, academia is good and we need that for some sides of the business, but yet you can actually take on a school leaver with no experience, no exams, and say, give them a chance because you don't know what they are. You don't know until you give them that opportunity. And half the time, when you give them that opportunity, they come in and they want to prove themselves. I think that it's a very different environment now than it was back in our.
I do think that, and I guess long may that continue.
Yeah.
It is all I would say to that. So, as I said, I don't pretend to know the answers. I really don't. It was just a talk out of what I'm passionate about and what's important to me. I don't know the answers. I wish I did.
Just one more question, and then we're going to wrap up, have another break, and come back to it. So if there's one more question, then throw it. Yes, is that a hand? Yes.
I just wanted to make an observation that you hit on a subject that we actually need a sort of week-long symposium on. Interestingly enough, my son's primary school was the last primary school to use ITA, and he was in the last year. He is autistic spectrum. He had learned to read before he arrived at the school using whole word recognition. I have to say he also had an underlying language disorder. They threw ITA at him and he was totally confused. And it took him a very long time to recover from that, ending up in a special school at the age of 8.5. I have to say he's an amazing young man, and if you're in St Leonard's any time or Hastings, there is a cafe called Cafe Bavard run by Autism Sussex and a lovely company, and he is a barista. He is very fulfilled and had lifelong learning and continues to learn.
There is, it's a fabulous cafe.
Yeah, and that's
In fact, sorry Ross, but Kath Newell, she's spoken at David's Catus, and she gave a talk here, I think, about autism, and she entitled it A Love Story, and that was about her severely autistic 15-year-old son. It's a very moving, a very poignant talk. One final question, and then we will take a break.
I don't know if you know the answer to this. I actually learned ITA as well, so I know what you're referring to. Has there been any studies as to how people who learn ITA have developed in comparison to people who learn traditionally? People know what
I don't know the answer. I haven't done that depth of research into this. I learned ITA, and I did reasonably well in the world of academia, and I've got a number of qualifications, and I'm sure a number of people have also. It would be interesting, I guess, one day to maybe delve a bit deeper and look at what the stats of maybe people that had difficulty would be rather than the people that had success, because maybe they'd have had success anyway. But how many people had difficulty because of ITA?
I think the symposium that Tessa just said, there is a company in Hastings called My Future Starts Here, and they are trying to get that going, I think, next year. So it might be worth sort of contacting. I'm going to cut it there because we are running over. So it's 10 o'clock. Can you come back, hold break, bar, drinks, refreshments, back here for just after 6.